Imagine spending your entire life writing masterpieces you were convinced were failures. Imagine finishing a novel, putting it in a drawer, and telling your closest friend to burn everything you ever wrote the moment you die. That friend disobeyed you. And because he did, an insurance clerk from Prague, a man almost nobody read while he was alive, became one of the most important writers of the 20th century. His name gave us a word. Not a genre, not a style. A word used to describe a very specific feeling. The sense that the world is run by forces too vast, too indifferent, and too absurd to ever fully understand. That word is Kafkaesque. But what did Franz Kafka actually believe? What was he trying to tell us, in stories about men turning into insects, and trials with no accusations, and castles no one can ever reach? Let's find out. Franz Kafka was born in 1883 in Prague, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He was a German-speaking Jew in a Czech-speaking city ruled by an Austrian empire, belonging fully to none of them. That's worth sitting with for a moment. Kafka spent his entire life as an outsider by default. Not by rebellion, not by choice, just by the accident of who he was, where he was born, and what language he spoke. He trained as a lawyer. He worked, for most of his adult life, at a workers' accident insurance institute, a job he was reportedly very good at, and one he privately despised. He wrote at night, often until 2 or 3 in the morning, exhausted, squeezing fiction into the margins of a life that belonged mostly to bureaucracy. He was engaged 3 times. He broke off each engagement. He suffered from tuberculosis for the last 7 years of his life and died in 1924, at just 40 years old, largely unpublished and, by his own estimation, unfinished. Here's the detail that matters most. Kafka did not see himself as a philosopher. He never built a system. He never wrote a manifesto. He wrote stories, strange, precise, quietly terrifying stories, and let the philosophy live inside the discomfort they created. That's actually the key to understanding him. Kafka doesn't argue a thesis. He builds a trap, puts a character inside it, and lets you feel what it's like to be caught. The story opens with one of the most famous first lines in literature. A traveling salesman named Gregor Samsa wakes up one morning to find himself transformed into a monstrous insect. What's remarkable is what Gregor worries about first. Not what has happened to me. Not am I dying. He worries about missing his train. He worries about disappointing his boss. He worries about supporting his family. Even mid-transformation into something unrecognizable, his first instinct is guilt over being unproductive. That's the real horror of the story, not the insect body, but what it reveals. Gregor's entire identity was built on his usefulness to others. The moment he can no longer work, no longer provide, no longer perform his role, his family's love for him doesn't just weaken. It reroutes into disgust, then indifference, then relief when he finally dies. Kafka is asking a brutal question here. How much of what you call love from other people is actually just the market value of what you provide them? Strip away your job, your usefulness, your ability to perform your role, what's left? Would the people around you still see you? Or would they just see the absence of what you used to give them? This is Kafka's first major theme, alienation, not just from society, but from your own family, and eventually from your own body and self. If the Metamorphosis is about alienation, the trial is about something even stranger, guilt with no discoverable cause. The novel opens with Joseph K. being arrested on his 30th birthday. He is never told what crime he's accused of. The court that's supposedly prosecuting him operates through hidden offices, cryptic officials, and endless procedural mazes that lead nowhere. K spends the entire novel trying to find someone, anyone, who can tell him what he did wrong. No one can. He is eventually executed, still not knowing his crime, in a scene of almost unbearable quiet. Here's what Kafka is really doing. He's dramatizing what it feels like to live inside a system so large and so opaque that you can no longer tell whether the fault lies in the world or in yourself. K begins to assume his own guilt, simply because the system insists he must have done something. He internalizes an accusation that was never actually specified. Sound familiar? Kafka wrote this in 1914 and 1915. Decades before the phrase "the system" became a cultural shorthand for exactly this feeling. Bureaucracies, institutions, algorithms, terms of service agreements nobody reads, customer service lines that loop forever. Modern life is full of Kafka's court. Structures that demand your compliance while refusing to explain themselves. This is Kafka's second major theme. The absurd, not absurd as in silly, but absurd in the philosophical sense the existentialists would later formalize. A universe, or a system, that offers no rational answer to the question, why is this happening to me? And yet demands that you keep participating anyway. Kafka's final, unfinished novel follows a character known only as K, who arrives in a village to take up a job at a castle that governs it. He spends the entire novel, which Kafka never completed, trying and failing to gain access to the castle, or even to get a straight answer from anyone about how to reach it. The castle is visible. It's right there, on the hill. And yet every road, every official, every villager leads K further from it, not closer. Some readers see the castle as a stand-in for God, or grace, or salvation. Something that seems close enough to reach for, but stays permanently out of grasp. Others see it as a more secular symbol, authority itself, meaning itself, the promise of belonging that bureaucratic life dangles in front of you but never actually delivers. Kafka died before finishing it. He left K, and all of us, permanently on the road, never arriving. That's not a flaw in the novel. It might be the entire point. So what's the philosophy underneath all this? Kafka is often grouped with the existentialists, Camus, Sartre, and it's easy to see why. His work is obsessed with alienation, absurdity, and the individual crushed by forces larger than themselves. But Kafka is subtly different from Camus. Camus' Sisyphus, pushing his boulder up the hill forever, is told to imagine himself happy, to find dignity in the defiant acceptance of a meaningless task. There's a kind of triumph available at the end of Camus' absurdism. Kafka rarely offers that triumph. His characters don't find peace with the absurd. They're worn down by it. Gregor dies alone. Joseph K is executed like a dog. K never reaches the castle. And yet, here's the paradox worth sitting with. Kafka's work doesn't read as nihilistic. It reads as urgent. Why would a man write with such obsessive precision, such careful, almost surgical prose, about meaninglessness, unless some part of him still believed the search for meaning mattered? Kafka once wrote, in his diaries, that a book should be the axe for the frozen sea within us. That's not the sentence of a man who's given up. That's the sentence of a man who thinks literature's job is to break something open in you, to shock you out of the numbness of daily bureaucratic life and make you feel, however briefly, how strange and precarious your existence actually is. Maybe that's Kafka's real philosophy, not a doctrine, but a discipline of honesty. Don't look away from the absurd. Don't paper over the alienation with false comfort. Sit inside the discomfort long enough to actually see your situation clearly, even if clarity doesn't come with a solution. A century later, we still reach for his name because his fictional nightmares turned out to be blueprints for real ones. Endless online terms of service nobody can read but everyone must accept. Algorithms that reject your loan, your resume, your account, and offer no appeal. Institutions so large that no single human inside them can explain their own rules. Kafka never lived to see any of this. He was describing the insurance bureaucracy of early 20th century Prague. But he described it so precisely, and so honestly, that the description outlived its original target and started fitting almost everything. That might be the real secret of his staying power. He wasn't writing about a specific system. He was writing about what it feels like to be a small, conscious, guilt-prone individual inside any system too big to see all the way around. Kafka asked his friend Max Brod to burn his manuscripts. Brod refused and published them instead, a small, human act of disobedience against a final instruction, not unlike the quiet defiances that flicker through Kafka's own characters before the systems around them close in. Maybe that's the most human footnote to his entire body of work. Even a man convinced his writing didn't matter couldn't stop friendship, memory, and disobedience from deciding otherwise. So the next time you're stuck on hold, or lost in a form that makes no sense, or waiting for an explanation that never comes, you'll know exactly what to call it. And now, you'll know exactly why. Thanks for watching.